She was shoved out of her first-class seat, not because she did anything wrong, but because they didn't think she belonged. No one spoke up. No one cared. But then, he walked in. Not just any man. The CEO of the airline. Her son. And what happened next silenced the entire cabin. Stay with us, because this flight didn't just take off, it turned the skies into a courtroom. Ma'am, this is first class. You need to check your ticket again. The flight attendant's voice sliced through the air, her expression tight with impatience. The elderly black woman looked up calmly from seat 2A and gently held up her boarding pass. It says 2A, she said quietly. The attendant barely glanced. I said you're in the wrong cabin. Another passenger, a white woman behind her, leaned forward. Some people always assume they can just take any seat, she muttered, not even trying to whisper. The elderly woman's hand gripped the armrest. She didn't respond. Her eyes scanned the row numbers again. Yes, 2A. She had paid for this seat. She was sure. I'm in the right place, she repeated, her voice firmer now. You can scan the ticket. But the attendant shook her head with a sarcastic smile. I don't need to scan anything, ma'am. Let's not make this harder than it has to be. Then, without warning, the flight attendant reached forward, grabbed the woman's small purse from the seat beside her, and tossed it toward the aisle. The movement startled her. In trying to reach for the bag, she bumped her shoulder against the tray table and winced in pain. A murmur ran through the cabin. Some passengers looked up. Others looked away. The elderly woman stood slowly, adjusting her coat. This is unnecessary, she said softly. You're blocking boarding, the attendant snapped. We'll find you another seat. Still holding her ticket, still confused, she looked around for help, but none came. A male flight attendant appeared. Need help here? He asked, grinning slightly. No, the first one said. She just thought this seat was hers. As she stood in the aisle, her purse on the floor, her dignity unraveling, the first-class curtain was pulled shut behind her. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. She walked toward the back of the plane. The seat she was given was in the very last row, near the lavatory. The kind of seat no one chooses, loud, cramped, and reeking of disinfectant. She sat down slowly, clutching her small purse against her lap like armor. Her legs trembled, not from the walk, but from the weight of humiliation. Her eyes remained forward, her posture upright, as though refusing to let the shame settle into her bones. Across the aisle, two young flight attendants leaned against the galley wall, whispering. Did you see her face? One giggled. She really thought she belonged up there. She's probably never even flown first class in her life, the other replied, loud enough for the words to float across the row. A few nearby passengers heard. None reacted. Most stared at their phones. One man peeked over his seat, then looked away quickly when her eyes met his. In first class, the woman now sitting in 2A sipped her champagne and reclined with ease, legs crossed, acting as if nothing had happened. A soft voice broke the silence. Daddy, why did the lady have to move? It came from a little girl sitting a few rows ahead. Her father pulled her gently to his chest, his face pale. Shoo, it's okay, sweetheart. But it wasn't okay. The old woman's eyes welled with tears, though none fell. Her pride would not allow it. She stared out the window, the clouds blurring with the sting behind her eyes. The pilot's voice came over the speaker, announcing a short delay due to a VIP boarding. No one paid much attention. The old woman closed her eyes and breathed slowly, deeply, reminding herself, stay quiet. Stay still. You are not the one who should feel shame. But still, her heart ached. Not because she lost a seat, but because in 2025, with a ticket in her hand and a name on the manifest, she still wasn't seen. She wasn't angry. She was tired. The buzz in the cabin grew louder as the intercom clicked on again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a short delay as we welcome a last-minute VIP boarding the flight. Please remain seated. Passengers perked up. Some straightened their collars. A few instinctively opened Instagram, hoping to catch a glimpse of a celebrity or influencer. Then came the sound of polished shoes on the jet bridge floor. A tall black man stepped onto the aircraft. Early 40s. Impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit, with a matte black leather briefcase in hand. He moved with quiet confidence, like a man used to commanding rooms without speaking a word. The lead flight attendant stiffened when she saw him. She turned to the others. "That's Marcus Reed," she whispered. "CEO of the airline." Now everyone was watching. He walked down the first-class aisle, nodding politely at passengers, his expression calm, until his eyes landed on the empty 2A seat. He paused for a beat. Then he looked beyond the curtain, scanning the economy cabin slowly. And there she was. His mother. Her posture hadn't changed. Back straight. Purse in her lap. Eyes fixed on the clouds. He said nothing, but the energy in the cabin shifted. The tension was instant, thick. Marcus turned to the purser standing near the galley. "Who seated that elderly woman in the back?" The man stammered. We didn't realize, sir. She didn't mention." "She doesn't need to mention anything. That's my mother." His voice didn't rise. But it landed like thunder. The cabin fell into silence. Crew members froze, and the passengers stared between the CEO and the woman in the back, their faces tense with realization. The lead flight attendant took a slow step forward, trying to recover. "Mr. Reed, if we had known." "You would have treated her like a person," he interrupted, eyes locked. He didn't need to shout. His presence alone said everything. He turned back to the economy cabin and began walking, past passengers who now averted their gaze, past the silence they helped create, straight toward his mother. He reached her row and stopped beside her seat. She looked up slowly, meeting his eyes. There was no need for words. He extended his hand. "Come, Mama." She hesitated, not out of fear, but out of quiet dignity. Then she stood, clutching his hand gently as he guided her down the aisle, this time not as an invisible passenger, but as someone the entire plane now watched. Each step was slow, deliberate. The curtain to first class was pulled aside again. The same curtain that earlier closed in her face. Now it opened for her. As they approached 2A, the woman who had taken the seat stood awkwardly, her face flushed. She stepped aside without a word. Marcus turned to the lead flight attendant, now pale and visibly nervous. "Return her belongings." The attendant scrambled to grab the small purse and folded coat, setting them carefully onto the seat, as if the objects themselves now commanded more respect than before. Then he spoke again, steady and direct. "You will apologize to her." The attendant looked stunned. "Sir, to her. Not to me." The woman turned, facing the elderly passenger, and lowered her head. I'm sorry, ma'am. I shouldn't have treated you that way." The old woman gave a small nod. "I accept your apology," she said calmly. "But I hope you remember that next time, you won't know who someone is. And you'll still treat them right. The word struck harder than a raised voice ever could. Marcus faced the purser. Gather the names of every crew member involved. Effective immediately, they are not flying this route. The crew shifted uncomfortably. One muttered under his breath. Marcus glanced at him. Would you like to join them? Silence. His mother settled into her original seat. She didn't look angry. Just exhausted. She whispered, I was ready to endure it. I've endured worse. He looked at her with both guilt and pride. You shouldn't have to. Not anymore. The plane sat motionless at the gate, the engines humming faintly beneath the weight of silence. Marcus remained standing at the front of the first-class cabin. The crew had stepped back. A few passengers pulled out their phones, others watched, unsure if they were witnessing an announcement, or a reckoning. He took the intercom from the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay, he began. My name is Marcus Reed. I'm the CEO of this airline. The cabin fell still. Before we depart, I need to say something, not as an executive, but as a son. He paused, eyes scanning the faces watching him. Today, my mother boarded this flight with a valid first-class ticket. She was removed from her seat, spoken down to, mocked, and relocated to the back of the plane, because someone assumed she didn't belong. Murmurs began. A few lowered their eyes. Some of you watched it happen. Some of you ignored it. And some of you laughed. He let that sit in the air. I built this airline so people like her would never have to feel small again. But today, she was reminded that money can't always buy respect, and that being black, being elderly, being quiet, can still make you invisible. In the back of the cabin, a young man wiped his eyes. In first class, a woman quietly removed her earbuds and whispered, "Damn. I want you to remember this moment. Not because of who I am. But because of what she endured." He hung up the intercom. Then he turned back to his mother. She sat upright in her seat again, looking out the window, her reflection framed by the clouds. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Justice, sometimes, comes not in anger, but in being seen. The plane finally pushed back from the gate. Passengers leaned back, some deep in thought. Others, still quiet. And somewhere between takeoff and altitude, the cabin didn't just lift, it shifted. Because on this flight, power didn't come from position. It came from presence. And a mother's silence had spoken louder than any CEO ever could.